All right, welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migu. You're just in time for our first conversation, and we are talking about what has to do with shaping the urban future towards creating a sustainable, equitable, and resilient and smart cities for all. And for this conversation in studio, I'm joined by George Arabu Ndege, who is the President, Architectural Association of Kenya. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having us.
Karibu sana. And also with me is Muguru Wairimu, she's an engineer and also a rapporteur at the Architectural Association of Kenya Convention 2025. How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you for making time.
Yeah.
Karibu sana. George, I will start with you. We're talking about shaping the urban future towards a sustainable, equitable, resilient, and smart cities for all. What, in your own words, does it mean?
Thank you, Mike. The issues of sustainability are tied to resilience. And when you talk about resilience, is that what are these factors that require a city, an urban area to be resilient? When you talk about an urban area, we're talking about a settlement which has a lot of people in a smaller space compared to a rural area. And these people come with different cultural challenges and cultural issues, positive and negative, and they're living very close together.
Yes.
Now, there is also the issues of the rapid growth of our populations.
Yeah.
Because we are seeing, like, for example, in Kenya, our population is growing by 5% annually. So that is one challenge. And then now we are looking at the issues of climate change, because these are issues that we are not, well, as much as human beings have contributed to them, a couple of them we're not in control over. So an urban area must be able to survive this and be able to provide a space where people are not just working now, because it started off as a factory, but now cities are places where people work, play, and live. So how is it livable? How does it improve the quality of life and survive the adverse weather conditions that we are experiencing with climate change? Yes.
Now, Engineer Muguru, you know, he has mentioned something to do with climate change, and sustainability is one of the things that has been talked about lately. So when it comes to the context of urban development and planning, what does sustainability mean?
Well, with sustainability, the aim is how then do you make sure that we are conserving our environment, not just for ourselves, but for the future generations. Yeah. So when we think about urban planning, we're thinking in terms of people need to live in homes, people need to live in houses. So how do we design and construct our houses that we are using less resources?
Yes.
And in the context of structures, then you start thinking about that the houses are well lit, that people don't have to use power during the day or when it's not necessary, that we think about like the usage of water in those environments. And you notice nowadays in our cities and many urban areas, people are being forced to get more, to dig boreholes and all that. How do we then ensure that the water usage is okay? For instance, when we come to, there's water that we flush, you know, flushing water in the toilets.
Yes.
We have the cleaning water. How can we recycle that water? Because then that way you end up reducing the resources that you're consuming. Another aspect of so like just trying to rely more on nature as opposed to now using AC, which raises the electricity consumption, trying to reduce the water consumption. Then when it comes to aspects like mobility, you notice that all cities, many cities deal with traffic, especially in African cities. So how then, these are so many people living at the same place and they are having similar commute needs. And by that I mean, every morning we all go to work, a good number of us go to work. So we have that a large amount of people who need to get to work at the same time. How then do we make sure that we are reducing the congestion, which also reduces the effect of, you notice that transportation is one of those serious contributors to the pollution, to the carbon emissions. So how do we then get to move people more effectively. And then again, when you're living in the same spaces, then you have to think about, are people getting to interact with nature? We have public spaces. So how do we then get to a point where we have these kids, they are growing, people are able to access public spaces, and that green environment, you see, green spaces are also what help, they are carbon sinks, they help reduce the carbon emissions being reduced. And also they help, when it rains, the stormwater, it infiltrates, so they recharge the groundwater. So how do we get to design cities incorporating all those needs while still accommodating so many people? Yeah.
You know, you've spoken of a very important aspect about carbon emissions, and you know, cities contribute to 70% emissions level it's the global level of emissions where cities contribute 70% of carbon emissions. And George, for a city like Nairobi or Kisumu or Mombasa, what steps can they take to ensure that the carbon footprint that we have right now is reduced and still accommodate urban growth?
Yeah, and unfortunately, when we talk about the issues of emissions and urban growth, for some reasons, for a long time it was believed that those cannot be separated, that for cities to grow and accommodate the needs of the population and the growing population, there will be the consequence of emissions being increasing. And that was true for a long time, because remember, when you talk about how most of our cities started, Nairobi started as a railway station, a railway stopover. Kisumu is the same thing. Mombasa started as a port. So there's a lot to do with work and factories. And then, of course, we looked at a situation where the issues of environmental impact of our cities was not taken into consideration. So when the discussion started around the responsive climate designs, people started realizing that it's actually possible to reverse the process, or at least minimize the emissions, or sort of take the emissions and try to create what engineers talked about, for example, carbon sinks. But most importantly, it's also change of lifestyles. Right now, we are talking about issues, for example, when we talk about mobility, with the issues of emissions from crude oil as a primary source of energy. It is possible for cities to start encouraging, for example, you know, cars which use electric vehicles, for example. That is one. But at the same time, encourage the use of sustainable energy sources, like solar, for example. The issues of greening cities cannot be underestimated, because it's not just about creating public open spaces, but also creating these carbon sinks that engineers mentioned, because we can't look at them as being something. It's not now an issue of aesthetics anymore. It's a functional part of the city. And if, for example, the city is well planned, the movement is seamless. There's not a lot of energy and emissions actually happen in traffic. Yes. Because a car is moving, it's not going, but yet it's there just stagnant, being inefficient. If there's efficient movement, access points, you know, flow of traffic, and then it means that we will reduce the emissions. So the issue is about, we cannot completely avoid contributing to the carbon emissions, but we can reduce, and we at the same time we can offset the emissions using greening of cities, using efficient flows and commute routes, and at the same time simply looking at housing, because the construction sector contributes about up to 40%. Actually. So if we build green buildings, if we build what we call passive buildings, which don't require so much energy to operate, and we do recycling of water, as we mentioned, we will be able to greatly reduce the emissions.
Is green build, the way you've put it, green buildings, is it achievable within this city? And are there efforts to ensure that this is coming up?
So I don't know whether you mean this city Nairobi or you mean this city Kisumu,
Nairobi,
because our context in this particular time is actually very sensitively about on the intermediary cities. I'll tell you this, that Nairobi is a bad example. It's a bad big brother as a city. So a lot of other cities like Kisumu and all the other counties, they look up to Nairobi, thinking Nairobi has developed, has big building, it has all this business. But the reality of the matter is that Nairobi can grind to a halt at some point because the rate at which we are building without planners, okay, without plans, without architects, without professionals, without engineers, what will happen is that we can continue this, which looks like good business, and then there will be a time when we'll grind to a halt. It is possible if we start now, because they always say that the next best time to start doing something right is today.
Yeah. So, Engineer Muguru, when you talk about smart city, what is it combined of? Would you say it's a case of ICT, traditional buildings, and human capital?
Well, I think smart cities, well, we make a mistake of just looking at the IT aspect of it, but it's very important. I think smart cities is the part where you have to combine so many things to work together. Allow me to use mobility as an example because that's my strength.
Yes.
So he's just talked about sustainable mobility, and he's talked about that we need to move people from one point to another, and there are so many. So he talked of encouraging, but I keep saying sustainable mobility, I define it in two contexts. The Western context where they need to incentivize and more of encourage people to use greener modes of movement. For instance, you notice in the Western cities, more people have a higher capacity to buy cars and all that. So if you look at how they plan their cities, they plan their cities in a way that there is compact growth. You know, we've had that conversation of compact in our country, and there's nothing wrong about it, but it is the how that we use. And if you look at it, let's use two examples. I would like to mention some of our even neighbors, Dar es Salaam, Kigali, and Addis Ababa. There's something that we can learn from each of those three cities. If we start with Kigali, which is talking about 15 minutes growth, if you look at their plan, they have a plan, an urban planning plan that they came up with for 2050. You'll notice that they have approved a lot of compact development along mass rapid transit systems. So when you do that you approve compact development along mass rapid transit systems, it means that you're allowing going higher, the 20 floors, 75 floors, as we have been discussing, but around mass rapid transit systems. So that almost incentivizes or forces the people who will live around there to use the mass rapid transit system. You get it? So then that way, the mass rapid transit system can accommodate more people, and so it makes movement much faster, as opposed to you drove to this place, I drove to this place, he drove to this place. So we are not efficiently using the road resources, you get. So the moment you allow it, that means you are allowing compact development, but you're also allowing so many you are also factoring in transit and other utility needs. So, and then now with that you bring in the ICT aspect of it, like intelligent traffic systems and all that. So then that way you're able to complement the decisions that you're making with IT. And you say like ITS allows more efficient movement of traffic. And in fact, there are some cities where they have the mass rapid transit systems. They allow that the bus BRTs or the LRTs or MRTs, they are prioritized. It means there is smart policing. It means that you see, so that you combine now the ICT aspect of it with the plans that you're making, which makes cities work. I think that's what
so it's one thing that makes a ripple effect.
Yes.
And even the way you've put it, having development along mass transit systems is something that contributes to economy. Engineer George, I want you to talk about this. Given what Engineer Muguru has said, do we need a new style of leadership and urban management to achieve this aspect of smart cities for the future?
First, can I clarify something? I did not drive here.
Okay.
I was trying to go green, so I used a cab.
Yes.
I would have used mass transit if it was existing, and I totally agree with that. The issue of mass transit is actually very smart, because smart is not just about technology.
Yes.
It's also about management. And as I bring to your question,
yes,
the issues of urban management are core to sustainability, to resilience. Because once you have the system in place, the next thing is that how do you manage this? How do we run these cities? Because right now there's a lot of politics in terms of our urban management issues. In fact, when you think about the 47 counties, each one of them with a center, an urban center,
yes,
the ones which are growing rapidly, it's just amorphous. There is no, the county development authorities, sorry, the county government doesn't have blueprints on how these cities are growing. And at the same time, they're not able to control how these cities are growing. They don't have capacity to inspect development project. They don't have capacity. They don't have plans. For example, a simple plan like how matatus move.
yes,
Public transport, how they move around there.
Yes.
It is just, I think it's cartels which are controlling where matatus stop, where the stages are. You saw the other day, I think, is it in Nyeri, where the county built a new stage, and the matatu guys refused to use it. These are very important issues of management. If these urban areas do not have proper management, if they do not have serious plans on how these cities will be run, it's just to be like a home that is broken, where everyone does whatever they want to do. In an ordinary family setup, there's a way in which meals are prepared, who buys what, who does what, activities here and there, and various people are given responsibilities. And then when it comes to rights, because the case of, for example, I'm going to go back to the case of, for example, public transport. In this case, matatu is the most common one we have in this country. Is purely controlled by private sector. In developed countries, in smarter or what I'll call forward-looking countries, please note it's not developed like North America. I'm talking about Scandinavian and a lot of cities in China. The government is highly involved in public transport, because this is how you move the productive population.
Yes.
If these people are stressed when they are moving from their workplaces and going back, how productive are they? Now, where is the failure here? There are two failures. Is that we don't have plans, and then we don't have good management. So what will happen is that those cannot be one over the other. As soon as we implement new plans, like for example, a city like Kisumu has just implemented a new city plan. The next big thing has got to be how that city plan will be implemented. It must be implemented through good, robust management systems and personnel. Yes.
So another question, given whatever we've talked about it, how do we finance that? How do we finance these issues, Engineer Wairimo?
Well, of course, let's start maybe let me use even our topics in the convention.
Yes.
How we are doing that. So
Yes.
one of the things we're going to be discussing under the financing bit is building climate resilient cities.
Yes.
And one of that has to do with green financing. You see, nowadays there's even that bit where, and these are now policies that people come up with, that if someone is having a green building or if someone is developing a green building, then there is that the loans are cheaper, just to incentivize more people to adapt that. Again, allow me to use our neighboring cities, because these forward-looking cities, we don't have to, it's not just the developed world, how they are going about it. Like if you look at Kigali, they have really incentivized importing of electric vehicles. And that is because then now you start thinking in terms of safer vehicles, because the newer the vehicles are, the better they are better in performance. But these safer vehicles, and also the electric vehicles, then you notice they reduce the emissions. And then if you look at our neighbors, Addis Ababa, they have now adopted a policy of just encouraging more people to walk. And the first thing they do that is they have really made sure that their active mobility is well done. They have an LRT system, and they have they have developed to a certain extent the lines, BRT line 3, line 6. They're really working on their mass rapid transit. So the moment then you provide a viable alternative, then you can finance by charging people who are using private vehicles. That is a way of financing these bits. You get it?
Yes.
So it's more about coming up with incentivizing sustainable options. For instance, now if I notice that, like in Rwanda, Kigali, where if I import an electric vehicle, then the tax burden will be less for me, then that makes it a viable option. So then that way you're encouraging more people to move towards it. If I am a developer and I can get a more affordable loan, because I am coming up with a sustainable sustainable building, then what I'm going to do, I'll do that. And how then do you come up with this? He talked about the fact that we have a tendency of running chaotically.
Yes.
Many people even tend to avoid using built environment professionals to plan. But you'll achieve a lot of this when you use built environment professionals in your development.
Yes.
It may be very cheap, expensive in the beginning, because of course you have to give the professional fee involved. But what about the recurrent use? You know, a lot of us focus a lot on the initial capital outlay and fail to forget maintenance. There's a building I saw recently, and I started calculating how much opportunity cost was missed because they didn't involve professionals. They don't need to tell us. The professional, you'll look at it and you'll know no professional was involved. And you start calculating, even with regards to electricity bill.
Yes.
Because a professional will design your building in a way that we have you have a lot of control, and in a way that even the current utilized is not much. So they will they need that consulting fees. But you'll notice the bills you pay subsequently for the rest of the life of that building, they are way cheaper.
Yes.
But how many times do we look at the costs, the opportunity cost missed, and also following rules? I have used 3 examples, the cities around us: Dar es Salaam, Kigali, Addis Ababa, and there are many others. But if you look at all these cities, they use our policies to develop their cities. And sometimes they use our professionals. We have so many landscape architects who are developing Kigali more than they're developing our country. So it's about, I think we have the right resources, we just have, at times there's a rogue way of doing things, but we have a lot, and we have very, very, very good policies. If only we committed to that, then it's more about just committing to what we have. And we're holding our convention in Kisumu, because Kisumu has been very committed to that. If you look at Kisumu, it's one of the most walkable cities. You'll notice it's very clean. It's quite clean, and their county government has really been committed. They have a Kisumu Sustainable Mobility Plan. And even when they are funded, because we have some urban programs that are funded, some of them like the CUSP programs, which is funded by World Bank, they implement the whatever is in that sustainable mobility plan. And when you look at it, you can see the effects. It's just more about working with professionals and working towards a plan. And one of the topics we'll have in our convention is especially about the urban plans. We have the county governments, how the county governments can implement this, and this will be done by one of our professionals who is who's a CC in one of these counties, Taita Taveta. We are also inviting an engineer from Dar es Salaam who has worked in DART for a long time when they were commencing the BRT system. And now he's working in urban mobility to just explain more about, use that as a case study for us to learn. So at times this is what the conventions are about. If you look at our topics, urban planning, and we have some case studies, like now we have a case study of how county governments can be used to implement plans, urban planning in the counties. We have a case study of effectively moving transport systems that move cities forward. We have another case study of sustainable financing when it comes to green buildings. So and Kisumu are also going to present their Kisumu Sustainable Mobility Plan. It is using what people are doing, which is working, and giving us a platform as professionals to learn from the same.
Yes. You know, George, the AAK convention is coming up. When is it happening? And from your perspective, how do you think such conventions shape Kenya's approach to sustainable, resilient, and smart cities?
Mike, I think the most important thing right now is to say that to be fair to the Kenyan public, that we, for a long time, as professionals, we've been speaking to ourselves and to each other about professionalism,
yes,
about what should be done right.
Yes.
And one of the reasons we are going, you know, what we call out into the intermediary cities is how can we reach more people, and also how can we support the various county governments in terms of what they are already starting to do. As the Rapporteur General has just mentioned, that Kisumu is one of those cities that are already thinking that way.
Yes.
And the main challenges we are looking at here is that it's actually capacity. A lot of counties lack professionals. You will be surprised if you do a very quick audit that most of our counties don't have the prerequisite consultants,
yes,
the professionals.
Yes.
We are going to be in Kisumu on 1st of October.
Okay.
To 3rd.
Yes.
And we start off with a mentorship session in a school. We have a program at AAK called Grow a Classroom, where we're trying to improve planning and learning environments for public primary schools. And we are hoping to instill stewardship, especially in younger generations, on environmental issues and planning issues. And at the same time, we are also looking at how can we encourage other cities, not necessarily to look at Nairobi as an example, but to look at Nairobi as examples of what not to do. Because there's a lot of things Nairobi is doing wrong that a city like Kisumu could actually do moving forward. And that starts off with the issues of proper plans,
yes,
having them in place. And these plans actually involve what you would call devolved decision making, where there was participation from the population, people know what they want, and then you prioritize, as the engineer was saying. We don't have finite resources. We don't have millions and billions of shillings. We have only some few money, but how do we prioritize it?
Yes.
And then at what point does this amount of money become useful? It only becomes useful when you target the most vulnerable. Who are the most vulnerable? The urban majority in Kenya. More than 60% of people, they use public means or they walk to work.
Okay.
So if these guys are comfortable, then it becomes easier to deal with the people who are driving. And I think this is some of the message we are trying to push out there, that focus on non-motorized transport, for example, make someone walk comfortably and have a situation where it is not difficult to be someone who's working in a city. Cities should be safe for the most vulnerable, the kids, women, so that if those people find it safe, then it means it's safe for everyone.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Allow me to end this conversation here. And I thank you so much for making time to come and talk about these matters, and also that it will be addressed during the AAK convention that is coming up. That is George Arabu Ndege, who is the President, Architectural Association of Kenya, and Engineer Muguru Werimo, who is a Rapporteur General, Architectural Association of Kenya, Convention 2025. I take you on the other side of Radio Taifa.